can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. We fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadows, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. In every fear I lay at your feet, I sing to the name. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Amen. Y'all can have a seat as we watch this video.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for worship at Bear Valley Community Church this morning. My name's Kyle, I'm the student pastor here, and I want to let you know about a couple of things as our service gets started. If you're joining us in person, take out the bulletin you got on your way in and take a look inside. One thing you'll see in your bulletin is this communication card. We would love for you to fill this card out, let us know that you're here, and on the back you can let us know how we can be praying for you this week. You can fill this card out now and drop it in the container on your way out the door after the service. If you're joining us online, you can fill out this same card at bearvalleychurch.com/connect. We would love to connect with you today. Also in your bulletin, you'll see some announcements about upcoming events. We're going to hear some more about those at the end of the service, so be sure to stick around after the message and learn about what's coming up in the life of our church. And that's all we've got for right now. Let's continue in worship.
How are y'all doing this morning? If you haven't noticed, I'm not Kim. I'm normally over there playing guitar. My name's Taylor. This is Hannah, and this is Reagan. You've seen Reagan before. We've played music together for a long time, so it's just extra special that we get to worship together this morning. And you know Clay. Clay's been around. But anyway, let's all stand and continue worshiping together. Hang on, is the back screen working? It's out? Okay. There you go.
From the rooftops
So I shout.
So I'll shout out your name from the rooftops. I'll proclaim that I am yours. I am yours. All that I am, I place into your loving hands. That I am yours. I am yours.
So I
Shout out your name from the rooftops. I'll proclaim that I am yours. I am yours. All that I am, I place into your loving hands. That I am yours. I am yours. Here I am. I stand with arms wide open to the one, the Son, the everlasting God, the everlasting God. Oh, here I am. I stand with arms wide open to the one, the Son, the everlasting God, the everlasting God. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Holy, holy is He. Sing a new song to Him who sits on heaven's mercy seat. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Clothed in rainbows of living color, flashes of lightning, rolls of thunder. Blessing and honor, strength and glory and power be to you, the only wise King. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Adore you. I will adore you. Filled with wonder, awestruck wonder at the mention of your name. Jesus, your name is power, breath and living water, such a marvelous mystery. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who was and is to come. With all creation I sing praise to the King of Kings. You are my everything, and I will adore you.
Amen. How many of y'all believe that this morning? Thank you for worshiping with us. You can have a seat.
We are obsessed, curious, distracted, and fixated. Like an accident on the side of the road, we can't look away. Something or someone has our attention. We are followers. We are all following someone. Sports teams, political candidates, natural disasters, breaking news, financial markets, technology trends, famous people. The list never ends. What is your curious obsession? Who or what are you following? Is Jesus on your list? Does he turn in and out of your thoughts? Is he a consideration of who you are and what you do? He should be. Let your heart catch fire with what it means to be a Jesus follower. Your life will never be the same.
We begin a new series today, Emotionally Healthy Discipleship. Now, why this title? When trying to help someone grow as a disciple, why is emotional health important? Why is emotional health a part of discipleship? I've spent my whole adult life studying the concept of Christian discipleship and trying to understand more and more about what it means. Of course, discipleship just means being a disciple. It just means following Jesus. It means, like the 12 disciples, being like Jesus. Now, if you look at the pathway of discipleship, most people kind of have the same concept. That is, what are the things you need to do to be a good disciple? You pray, you study the Bible, you have fellowship, you witness, you serve. Those are the basics. One group has it: revelation, observation, application, multiplication. Another group has it: share the word, show the word, teach the word, serve the world. Okay. But we were studying discipleship a few years ago, and I decided to ask some of our church planters who are out there on the front lines trying to win people, indigenous people in, tribes around the world who had never heard about Jesus before. So I sent an email to them and asked, what do you consider to be the basic elements of discipleship? And several of them wrote back, and I really wanted to hear their response because they're really on the very front lines. They're talking to people who've never heard the name Jesus before. And so what do they do to help people grow and to be a follower of Jesus? And it was interesting when I got back their response. It was pretty much, we helped them to learn how to pray, how to read the Bible, how to be a witness, how to serve, how to have fellowship. Kind of the same thing. But here's what's bothered me for years. Why is it that people who study the Bible, pray, witness, and serve, why is it that so many Christians who are doing the pathway of discipleship don't look much like Christians? You know what I'm saying? Okay, you see this on the news all the time. Christians who act so bad, so badly, that anybody who has a brain knows that this is not like Jesus. Like those guys at Westboro Baptist Church, who protest military funerals. They are known by, quote, as the most obnoxious and rabid hate group in America. Now, they study the Bible, they pray, they witness, they serve. But there's something deeply wrong when people don't have any love in their hearts and just live on hate. What is it? If you want to be a disciple of Jesus, it's about the heart. Why is it that the percentage of Christians, that percentage-wise, when they do surveys, that Christians make about the same moral choices as non-Christians? That shouldn't be, but it is. Why is it that some people who study the Bible, pray, witness, and serve can't seem to get along with anybody? Why is it that some people who pray, study the Bible, and witness, and serve are judgmental and prideful and loving? Why is it that I'm judgmental and prideful and loving? That's what bothers me. Because discipleship, ultimately, it's about the heart. It's about love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, those things that are the fruit of the Spirit. And that's what emotionally healthy discipleship is all about. Sometimes we just call it maturity. But the thing is, you can't be spiritually mature without being emotionally mature. They go together. So when we talk about emotional health, we're talking about things like this: the ability to have good relationships, the ability to cope with the challenges that confront you, the ability to think before you act. That's a biggie, right? The ability to have balance in your life, the ability to forgive others and forgive yourself, the ability to live with purpose and meaning, the ability to love God with all your heart and to love others. Those are the things we're talking about today. Now, if you will, open your Bear Notes. And this is kind of an introduction to this series. I'm going to tell you more about the series later, but what we're trying to do today is just talk about the problem of emotionally unhealthy discipleship. So we're going to walk through some things, and I hope that all of these are things that we will learn and grow in the course of the study that we're working with right now for the next 8 weeks. So you ready to go? Number 1, using God to run from God. The first sign or problem of emotionally unhealthy discipleship is using God to run from God. Now, your relationship with God is on the inside, and it's an unhealthy relationship with God if your whole relationship is just on the outside, just the things you do. You just do things, but in your heart, you're actually running from God. Notice this passage. When the Pharisees saw this, they asked his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" On hearing this, Jesus said, "It's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick." And then notice what he says next. Because see, they study the Bible. They study the Bible, they pray, they serve, they witness, right? That's what the Pharisees do. They're pros at this. But then Jesus said, "But go and learn what this means." He's saying, look, you guys study the Bible all the time, but you need to learn what it means. Go and learn what it means. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. And then Jesus said, "For I have not come to call the righteous, but the sinners." See, they did all their prescribed sacrifices on the outside, but on the inside, they're using their religiosity to actually run from God. Remember Mary and Martha? So Mary was sitting at the feet of Jesus learning. Martha comes into the living room from the kitchen and says, "Teacher, tell her to help me in the kitchen. I've got a lot of work to do here." And so you know when somebody's life is out of order when they're commanding Jesus what to do rather than Jesus commanding them what to do. And that was her situation. She was just plain too busy to be a follower of Jesus. Okay, that's the first one. Using God to run from God. Number 2, exaggerating my accomplishments. Exaggerating my accomplishments for God to subtly compete with others. The word is compete there. Exaggerating my accomplishments for God to subtly compete with others. Now, how mature can you be as a disciple of Jesus if you want to please people rather than pleasing God? That's a challenge, isn't it? In Galatians, here's what Paul said about that. He said, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." Now, let me tell you a story. So one of the spiritual disciplines is fasting. So as a young Christian, I used to fast all the time. And so, mostly 24 hours, no food, just water. Sometimes 4 days or sometimes a week. And so I usually fasted, Monday was kind of my fasting day. And I was gung-ho for Jesus. I would do anything for Jesus. And so I came across this passage where it said this Pharisee was looking at a tax collector, and he was saying, I'm glad I'm not like that tax collector. I fast twice a week. Well, as soon as I saw that, I thought, he fasts twice a week? Well, I'm going to fast twice a week because I'm better than he is. Okay, that was my first reaction to seeing that the Pharisees fasted twice a week, that I had to do at least as good, if not better, than they were. Now, God got my attention one day. This was kind of goofy, but so it was one day that I was fasting. So, you know, when you haven't eaten in 24 hours, you get a little bit weak-kneed. And so I was walking, I was a college student at Baylor. I was walking across campus, coming home from a test. I'd stayed up, you know, like till 3 in the morning studying. And this car came around the corner. And I was walking across the street, and I just kind of glanced back and noticed this car came around the corner, and the driver was looking like this. He was looking at some girl over there or whatever, and he comes screaming around the corner, and I just started running because I thought, man, he is going to take me out because he's not even looking. And so he came, and I ran as fast as I could, which was not that fast, and I'm not kidding. He just caught the back of my shirt there as he went by, and then he didn't even notice until he was just past me there. But I was thinking God was trying to get my attention. He said, hey, maybe you're overdoing it a little bit here, okay? Just kind of like chill, you know? Okay, so God got my attention there. Exaggerating my accomplishments for God to subtly, or not so subtly, compete with others. Okay, let's look at the next one, number 3. We're looking at the problem of emotionally unhealthy discipleship. Number 3, applying biblical truths selectively. Applying biblical truths selectively to avoid anything that would require making significant life changes. Conveniently skipping over the passage that don't fit into your preconceived lifestyle. In John 5, Jesus said to the Pharisees this, he said, you study the scriptures diligently because you think that in them you have eternal life. But these are the very scriptures that testify about me. But you refuse to come to me to have life. So Jesus is saying, yeah, you're studying the scriptures, great. You're just skipping over all the important ones, the ones that would require you to actually make a difference in your lifestyle. It's awfully easy to skip over verses that call us to do something hard or to change our attitudes. You remember that verse that says, if you are there at the altar and you're bringing your offering to the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, just leave your offering there and go and make it right with your brother and then come back and give your offering. See, it'd be easy to skip over that verse if that's something that you felt like, you know, God was calling you to do. It's easy to skip over the verses that call us to love the unlovely and to care for the needy and to confess our sins and to forgive a wrong. Applying biblical truths selectively. Let's look at number 4. Okay, this is an interesting one. Ignoring anger, sadness, and fear. Okay, our feelings, you know, basic feelings, anger, sadness, fear, happiness. Those are kind of considered the 4 biggies. Ignoring anger, sadness, and fear. Now, you know in neurological studies, right, that when you receive information, that information goes through your emotional bank first before it gets to your thinking brain. And that's for protection, that's for security, because we need to be able to feel things instantly if we're going to have to run, fight, flight, you know, that sort of thing. So all information goes through the emotional bank first before it gets to the thinking part of our brain. So feelings are just a part of our lives. Don't think that feelings are something bad or whatever. Obviously there are some bad feelings, but feelings are just a part of our lives. And to be a full human being, to be a disciple of Jesus, you have to be tuned in to the feelings that you have. Now, this little chart that I printed in here, faith, fact, feeling, maybe you've seen that before. I used to use a witnessing booklet called 4 Spiritual Laws. It was in that booklet, so I've seen this like a million times. And this little chart is really about doubt. Like, if you pray to receive Christ, but yet you don't feel like you're a Christian, this chart was saying, look, it's not about your feelings. It's not about whether you feel like Jesus came into your life. It's not whether or not you feel like you can feel God all the time, but trust in the fact. And the coal car is the faith that runs the engine. So it's your faith in the facts. The feelings are just the caboose. They're just kind of traveling behind. So this whole chart is something that's very common among Christian disciples, but it's talking about how to handle feelings of doubt. It's not talking about that you ought to repress all your feelings. So Peggy, my wife, and I talked to her about sharing this story. The tragedy in her life was that her dad died when she was 15 years old. Her brother was 13. At a very tender moment in history for her life, her dad, who was a pastor, who was kind of the center of the family, passed away. And so it left an indelible mark on her life. But see, as a Christian family, they thought, well, feelings are not really that important, so let's just be happy. He's in heaven. Everybody's good. We're just going to go on with life. And so for 20 years, she just repressed the grief of losing the most significant person in her world. But 20 years later, finally, she began the process of dealing with that grief. Now, she just told me this yesterday, that her brother, on the same day that she started dealing with her grief, her brother called and said, guess what I'm doing? And he too, 1,000 miles away, started the process of dealing with the grief that it was 20 years lost. And even though it was 20 years late, God was still waiting to heal them. So, it is not the Christian duty to repress feelings. It is that we tune into feelings and work with God over them. Number 5 is dying to the wrong things. Dying to the wrong things. Now, you know that the Christian life is a call to die, right? That's what Jesus called his followers to do, to die to self and to live for Jesus. Here in this verse, and then he said to them, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. You know what you do with a cross, right? Sometimes we talk about, boy, he has a cross to bear. But really, a cross is something that you die on. So he's calling people to die to self. Now, but what if you die to the wrong things? See, dying to self is calling you to die to your own pride, dying to getting your own way, dying to living by your own will. But for me, in my gung-ho-ness to follow Jesus with all my heart as a young Christian, I started dying to some of the wrong things. Like I said, okay, I'm not going to have any more relationships anymore, any more friendships, because, people just take me away from my relationship with God, kind of like holding up in a monastery somewhere and staying away from all people. And I died to music. Still, there's a certain years in my music anthology that I don't even know any of the songs from that period because I was dying to music and dying to sports, dying to all those things. Well, those are just parts of life. Now, maybe some of those things helped me to focus on God, but I kind of overdid it there again and died to the wrong things. And so it's easy to die to the wrong things and yet not die to self-will, not die to getting my way, not die to pride. So in that period of my life, as committed as I felt like I was actually going backwards in my Christian faith rather than going forwards. Number 6, denying the impact of the past on the present. Denying the impact of the past on the present. It's easy for a Christian to say, hey, I'm born again. So all the bad things in my past, they don't have any influence on me anymore. They're all gone. I'm a new person. And now, everything in the past, the slate is wiped clean. But wouldn't you affirm that the relationships you had in the home where you grew up have an effect on you today? Right? It has an effect on you today, right? Here's this verse from Numbers. God, slow to get angry and huge in loyal love, forgiving iniquity and rebellion and sin, still never just whitewashing sin, but extending the fallout of the parents' sins to children into the third, even the fourth generation. I've heard so many times people say, well, my grandfather was an alcoholic, my father was an alcoholic, both my sisters were an alcoholic, but that didn't really affect me any. Although I am an alcoholic, Okay. So, you see, the things from our family of origin have significant influence on the way we grew up, on our thinking and all that. And to deny that is just be unrealistic. And it's an unhealthy situation. Our family of origin affects our attitudes toward conflict, shame, gender roles, family, children, recreation, sexuality, relationships, and the list just goes on and on. In fact, what discipleship is we start off with a whole bunch of deficits, right? And we're growing to be like Jesus. We're growing to be love and joy and peace and all those things. But we got a lot of deficits in our lives, often that are carried on from generation to generation. And that's part of what our job is as a disciple of Jesus, is to continue in our born-again state to let those things become new also. Number 7, dividing life into the sacred and the secular. Dividing life into the sacred and the secular. As if the Christian life is what you do on Sunday, and then the rest of the week you're just on your own, you know. Like you serve God on Sunday and serve yourself the rest of the week. That is a very immature way to divide up life. In Luke 10, he answered, Jesus said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. I hope you realize how immature this concept is, to divide life into the sacred and the secular. It's awfully close to that medieval concept from 500 years ago, where Christians were just born Christians. You know, they're just born into a Christian country, and therefore they're just Christians and then there's like, well, okay, so if I'm a Christian, what do I have to do? And they're like, well, you have to go to Mass at least one time a year. You know, it's like, okay. So they go to Mass one time a year, and then they're just on their own for the rest, and they figure, well, that's what being a Christian is. So this concept of dividing life into sacred and secular is totally against the concept of discipleship, because if you're a believer, your whole life is sacred. Everything you do is sacred because God is in your heart. Well, let's look on the back page. 2 more. The problem of emotionally unhealthy discipleship. Number 8 is judging other people's spiritual journey. Okay, this is a biggie. Judging other people's spiritual journey. Now, the Pharisees, of course, they judged Jesus as being one of the most evil people on earth. So you see how this judging thing can sort of get out of hand, right? And the Pharisees were so immature in their ability to judge that they criticized Jesus for healing people. I mean, how unloving and uncaring can you get, you know? If being with God is supposed to make you loving, you know, this is like about as far from loving as you can, that Jesus would help people and he would get criticized for that. And so you remember that guy who had been 38 years lame? So for 38 years, he had ridden around in a wheelchair or maybe a cart. You know, they'd throw him in a cart and take him somewhere. And then they just dump him off on the side of the road to beg. For 38 years, he hadn't been able to stand. And Jesus heals this guy, but it's on the Sabbath. Uh-oh. And the Pharisees then just went crazy. And they were like condemning Jesus to death because he healed this guy. So for 38 years, this poor man had lived in misery, and now he's free, and he's happy, and he's healthy. And Jesus catches flack for that. How immature can you get to judge Jesus on a basis of that? This is called spiritual pride. And it's easy for Christians to fall into spiritual pride unless they have a lot of maturity. And let me just say, I've struggled with this a lot in my life. One of my friends volunteered one time to be a part of a ministry. And so he said, hey, you know, he was an older teenager, and he said, I'd volunteer to be a part of this ministry. And so the guy who led the ministry said, well, here's the deal. You can be a part of our ministry if you'll cut your hair to make sure your ears show completely. And he's like, yeah, I think I won't do this. I mean, come on now. Judging other people's spiritual journey on the fact that your hair is touching your ear is just crazy. In 2 Corinthians, Paul said this. He said, when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they have no understanding. In my early Christian life, I compared myself to everybody. Like, that person is more spiritual than I am. I need to learn from them. That person is less spiritual than I am. I need to criticize them. I compared myself with everybody. And see, when you do that, you can't have any relationships, because the people who are so spiritual, you're not spiritual enough to be equal with them, right? And the people that are below you, you don't want to be related to them because their spiritual life is so low. So when you compare yourself, it ruins everything. Spiritual pride is a killer in the Christian life. And it's a part of emotionally unhealthy discipleship. One more, number 9. Doing for God instead of being with God. doing for God instead of being with God. Now see, here's the way it's supposed to be. Jesus wants us to be his friends in a personal, intimate relationship. In John 15:15, this was the night before that he was arrested, before he was crucified the next day. I no longer call you slaves. He's saying this to his disciples. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. Now, you are my friends, since I've told you everything the Father has told me. The definition of discipleship is simply following Jesus. It's just being with Jesus. It's just loving Jesus. And if we're not careful, we can become like, instead of human beings, like human doings. We just do stuff for Jesus, but we don't spend time with him. And so doing for God instead of being with God will hurt our ability to build our relationship with God, because he has called us to be his friends. Now, we're on an 8-week journey here with this series. And so we've got a series of books here. There's 2 of them that are really important that I want to tell you about. One is this day by day. So this is a day by day devotional book that goes along with what this series, and it actually is dealing with the subjects that we'll be dealing with. Now remember what I've shared with you before. In this series, what we're doing on Sunday morning is just 10% of the whole. The other 90% is on you. So this is a big deal, and it's going to require your investment if you hope that you can have life transformation in this experience. So part of it is this day-by-day thing. It has a devotion for the morning and a devotion for the evening. And so it's trying to help you get into the habit of tuning into God at 2 very significant times of the day. There's also this workbook. The big one here is the workbook. And this workbook goes along with the videos. And that's what we'll be doing in our life groups. So I hope you'll be a part of our life groups. For example, we have life groups that are in here on Wednesday nights. And so we have several tables set up around the room, and we'll watch the video together, and then we'll discuss and go through the workbook. And then the workbook also has some stuff for you to do at home during the week. So I really hope you can be a part of this and take advantage for all of these things. I have one of the groups here on Wednesday night, so if you can't find a group, I'd love for you to join mine. But today is day number 1. So January the 30th is day number 1 in our daily readings. And I hope that you can be a part of all of these things. And I can promise you it will make a difference in your life if you invest your heart, your effort into this process of discipleship. Let's pray together. Our Father, we know that you want us to grow. We know, Lord, that growing is a challenge sometimes because inwardly we resist it. And so my prayer is that during these 8 weeks in which we study about discipleship, that you will help us to grow, you will help us have life transformation, you will change our hearts to make us more loving, more joyful, and more full of peace in you. This is our hope, Jesus. In your name, amen.
Hey everybody, thanks again for joining us for worship today. I want to let you know about a couple of things before we go. First of all, if you haven't yet, go ahead and take a minute now to fill out this communication card. You can drop it in the container on your way out the door today, or go to bearvalleychurch.com/connect to fill it out online. If you have an offering to give, you can give by cash or check in the same container on your way out the door. You can also give online at bearvalleychurch.com/give. Thank you for your generosity. All right, it's finally here. This week starts our 8-week series, Emotionally Healthy Discipleship. And we're going to have our life groups starting this week. And this is going to be a key component of these next few weeks in this series, is to join a life group and be together with a few people to talk about what you're learning and to share and pray for one another together. This is the book that all of our life groups are going to be using. You can pick this up out at the Welcome Center, and I hope you'll take a couple of minutes after the service today to go sign up and find a life group. They're going to start meeting this upcoming week, and pick up one of these books as well. Also, if you want to start your own life group, you can do that. Just get a few friends or family members together, and you have, when you buy one of these books, there's free access to stream all of the teaching videos that go with each session. So you can have, even if you want to have an online group, you can have everybody watch the video on their own, then meet together on Zoom and talk about the discussion questions together. We also have this 40-day devotional book that goes along with this series. So day one can be today, even if you need to pick one of these up and go home and do the morning devotion today, you can do that, or you can start tomorrow. So these books are also $12, and these are 40 days of morning and evening devotionals that go with this series that are going to help you build in daily time to spend together with God. And that's all we've got for today. Let's close out our service with some worship.
Let's stand, worship together one more time. There's no end to your power. There is no limit in you. You break down the walls. You make giants fall. There's nothing that you cannot do. So we